Hello again and welcome back to the channel. Today we'll be doing another reaction video, and this time it'll be to one of the countless videos around YouTube where you can grow a miracle rose in a potato and get 99 roots. That's quite literally the title of this video. Stick a rose in a potato and the rose immediately grows 999 roots. But let's get into the video and let's see what I agree with and what I don't agree with, and I'll give my thoughts on the topic. So let's get the video started here.
Topic. Take a rose and cut the stem about 15 centimeters long.
Yeah, 15 centimeters don't sound too off. Normally I say about a pencil in length and a pencil in width, so that's pretty decent. And you can also see here she's removing the stem around the node area. She's cutting away the hard surface around the node area, and that's a good thing to do because it is in the node area the stem cells of the roses, and those are the spots where it's most likely to form roots. But let's continue.
Then remove all the leaves below. If you are new, please.
Yeah, removing the leaves is of course necessary, because if you don't remove the leaves they will rot, or they will cause the rose to have too much evaporation, you'll lose too much moisture. But you also don't really want to remove all leaves like she's doing here, because you want the rose to have something to form photosynthesis with. So I would actually not remove all leaves. I have kept like one or two small leaves on it up here at the top, where away from the soil, of course. So I wouldn't have done it like that. I would have kept one or two leaves at the very top end of it.
Subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any videos.
I also wouldn't have done what she did there. She essentially cut away a node point further down. She had two node points, but now she only has one, and I think the second node point would have been very useful in rooting. So yeah, I don't agree with that either. I would have stuck with two node points.
Take 1 clove of garlic to clean the cut. Garlic helps prevent bacteria and fungi from damaging plants.
This is actually true. Like the garlic can help prevent bacteria and fungi. Like I don't remember it as being the strongest for fungi. I tend to use cinnamon because I believe cinnamon is a bit stronger. At least I've had better effect with cinnamon, but yeah, really whatever works for you. But let's continue.
Rub garlic into the cuts on the rose stem.
Yeah, this is essentially what I always do with cinnamon. Like, you can also do it with rooting hormone if you got that. The reason I don't use rooting hormone is actually I can't get it anymore, but rooting hormone is essentially a dried out form of what's it called, vinegar, with some hormones in it. But I find I find cinnamon to work decently well for me. I've tried different methods over the years, but cinnamon is the one I tend to stick with.
Hvorfor vælger fotografer at droppe?
And now we have another commercial.
Take 1 potato, then peel it. Potatoes have many nutrients that help stimulate root growth. If you know how to apply the right method, the tree will grow roots like crazy when it meets potato.
Yeah, I see a lot of these videos where you can stick things in a potato, a tomato, or banana. But I think what people fail to realize is these things rot. And if there's one thing that'll kill your rose very fast, it is rot. So you're essentially sticking your rose into a decaying piece of organic matter, which you in this case have wounded a whole lot. And the likelihood is that this will start rotting, and that rot or that fungi will spread up the rose stem and ruin the rose. And that's why I never advise using organic material like that. I often advise using more inorganic material, more dead, inert material, where there's not a lot of bacteria in. Because as soon as you start adding these more composing or composting materials, you also create a microbiome full of bacteria. And that can be quite harmful because it can really kill your rose from fungi spreading to it. So if you're using all this decaying material, you also have to use a really strong fungicide. But really, your rose doesn't need all those nutrients when rooting because there's no roots to absorb the nutrients. There's nothing that like the rose doesn't even need nutrients for the longest time when it's rooting. It is, and if it needs a nutrient, it needs phosphor. It doesn't need necessarily the more cadmium or something you find in potatoes. So I would seriously question this, but you don't even want to fertilize your rose after it has rooted, you want to fertilize your rose after it has rooted, not before when the roots are forming. So I actually question this whole approach a lot, simply because in my opinion it does more harm than good, because you risk the thing you planted into, be it a potato, a tomato, or a banana, rotting before and spreading it to the rose.
Potatoes.
Honestly, you could just stick the rose in sand. Like, sand is a fantastic inert material without many bacteria, and you could also have done vermiculite or perlite or some kind of mixture. But really, when you're starting things out with rooting, you want the material as dead as possible to prevent rotting. Because you have this period of about, I would say, 6 weeks, where you really have to pray to a higher deity that things don't rot. And it is really not nutrients things need in that period. It is simply an inert, moist environment with a little bit of darkness and a little bit of underground warmth to get it to root. You don't even want to worry that much about nutrients until you have the roots on the rose.
After peeling, we cut the potato skin into small pieces. Put the sliced potato skins into a plastic cup.
Yeah, this just makes it even worse for me, because the more cuts and the more of this decaying material you have, the more likely something will rot, and the more likely that rot will spread to the rose.
Potato core, cut into small square pieces.
Again, the more cuts, the more likely to rot.
And cut a hole in the middle. Take 1 clove of garlic, peel and then chop finely.
There's another problem with using garlic, and that is garlic is actually quite acidic. Garlic can burn a lot of things, which is why I tend to use cinnamon. But yeah, maybe it works for her, I don't know, but I could definitely see some concerns in doing it.
Add 2 more tablespoons of rice.
Now this is just even worse in my opinion, because rice contains a lot of sugar, and sugar is something a lot of bacteria and a lot of fungi and a lot of other things really like, and a lot of rice is also naturally contaminated with fungi and a lot of other things because it's not completely sterile. Like it is the same with something like coffee beans. Coffee beans actually also have a lot of fungi spores in them. So you're really running a risk adding all these things to the rose growing.
Pour in 300 milliliters of water and stir well. After the mixture has dissolved,
This is the Chilean sweet.
And we get another commercial. It's one of those heavy commercialized videos.
rose branches in water for about 5 minutes. Chop the garlic cloves and drop them into the cup.
Honestly, at this point, the thing she's doing seems so
In this
complex
propagation,
that
we use river sand as a growing medium.
I actually agree with this. Finally, she's getting to
Loose
some real
river
stuff.
sand
The
is very
sand.
suitable for young roots to grow.
Sand
Fill
is what you want to
2/3
be
of the cup
using.
with sand and then insert the base of the rose stem into the potato slice.
Yeah, now she's throwing it as the potato again.
Then add more sand to fill the cup.
Again, this is a mistake because she's not adding a deep enough pot and a deep enough placing the cut deep enough below the surface. The problem if you don't use a deep enough pot is the rose shoot can go back and forth and when these young roots are forming, if it can make this kind of rocking motion, then those new roots will rip off because they're not stabilized. So you actually want to place your rooting a bit deeper so it can't make the rocking motion and can't go back and forth. You want to place solidly in there so the new young roots don't come off.
Use a filter to remove residue.
Honestly, there's also another mistake with this video. She doesn't remove the flower head. The flower head will suck all energy to the flower. And because of that, there won't be as much energy for the rose to focus on creating roots. You always want to get rid of the flower head because the flower head is very energy expensive. It takes a lot of nutrients, a lot of water. So if you don't cut it off, you're doing the rose a disservice because it can't use that energy that will have gone up to the flower head, use that instead to create roots. And another thing is she also cut off the leaves. As I said before, there's not normally I would leave like 2 leaves on there or maybe 3, and to help the rose form some photosynthesis. She also removed that, so she has created a situation where there's no leaves to create photosynthesis, but there is a huge flower bud that takes up energy. So in my opinion, I don't really believe in what she's doing so far.
Moisten the sand with the filtered root stimulant solution. Once the sand is damp, cover the cup tightly with a plastic bag.
Yeah, this is actually correct. You want to keep moisture about 80%. But the thing here is she has a flower under there, and that flower is definitely going to rot when it gets trapped in the moisture. So again, I'm not really sure about this.
Next, wrap the tape tightly underneath to help the plant retain moisture better. The water vapor inside does not escape, the tree is always fresh. Then leave the plant in a cool place, away from direct sunlight.
Well, you want to keep it out of, well, I wouldn't say you want to keep it out of sunlight. You want to prevent it from drying out, but it actually needs decent amounts of sun. Like when you're growing a lot of these rose plants for roots, they want about 10 to 20 kilolux of sun, and that's about 10 to 20,000 lumen. Roses are actually sun-loving plants, and they really, when they're rooting, they also need quite a lot of sun actually. But what you don't want to happen is them drying out. You want underwater, you want high moisture, 80%, and then you want you want the pots heated from below, and then you want, typically you want between 21 to 24 degrees from below. And of course you want sun, because if you think about it, if you leave something completely in the dark in a cold place, then it's more prone to rot. So maybe depending on where she lives, maybe she lives in a very warm place where she can get away with this. But in general, be careful with things you leave cold, dark, in a trapped plastic bag, because they can easily rot. And in my opinion, you might not even want to keep the bag completely sealed, because when a bag is completely sealed, it is often at 100% moisture. If it was me, I'll poke a few holes in there to get it down to 80% moisture. But that's just me.
5 days later, we need to disassemble and move the plant to a new, larger pot.
Yeah, I can tell already now that this time scale is completely off. Like 5 days. There's never been a rose that roots in 5 days. The earliest I have seen a rose root is 3 weeks, but most roses take 6 to 8 weeks. So the time scale here is completely off.
As you
Yeah, just see all the leaves that it has formed. That is not 5 days of growth, not even a week of growth. That is like 3 to 4 months of growth. It is, honestly, I don't believe the video anymore. I really don't, because even a normal rose that has a large root would struggle to grow that fast in 5 days. So I honestly, that little cutling that has to really support that huge flower, there's no way.
can see, the seedlings have grown quite vigorously.
Yeah, guys, I think I'm just going to cut here to where she reveals the roots to avoid a too long video.
And then I will guide you how to plant in a new pot to help the plant grow as best as possible.
Yeah, the roots kind of seem like what you would expect, these white roots on new rose. But you have to be really careful here. You can easily break the crown on such young roses.
Watch what milk does to your brain.
And now we get more commercials. Honestly, the fact it's so heavily commercialized also makes me doubt it, but...
You see the
Yeah, I went quiet here because this doesn't look like how a rose would naturally make roots for me, because these are too evenly spaced out along the whole stem in a very unnatural way. It doesn't look how I see most of my codlings making roots. It seems too symmetric, in my opinion.
white roots when living in the sand.
It's not the bottom part. The bottom part seems pretty normal, but it is more these the ones you see growing up below the crown, where there's like a half a centimeter between, and then they go all right around the stem. I have rarely seen a rose root like that in such a short amount of time. Actually, just rarely in general. Let's skip ahead here.
Please note that after repotting the plant, keep it in a cool place.
She actually did a good thing here. She cut the top part off to encourage branching. But that's also something that makes me doubt this video even more, because the rose already had all this branching without her cutting the top part off. And normally this side branching only occurs when a rose is has the top part cut off with these young shootlings, cutlings. So there's a lot of things, a lot of small details that makes me really doubt this video. But I'll exit it now. And what do you guys think? Do you think this video is real or not? In my opinion, there's a lot of red flags in it for me, because 5 days is way too soon, and the way the roots were placed and the way the cutling has already branched so much without her cutting off the main stem. And honestly, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. I don't believe this, because honestly, I have never seen a rose root in under 4 weeks, and most commercial rose growers that grow millions of roses each year, they take about 6 weeks. So 5 days, that's just too extreme. Like, there's something going on here. Either the time is off by a considerable amount to make it seem easier, or the rose is somehow stuck together with new roots on another plant. I'm not sure which one it is, but there's something fishy about this video for me, for sure. Let me know in the comments if you think it's a real video, a real rose growing technique, and let me know your opinion. That's it for today, guys, and take care out there.